So, Linda, you're the executive director of Her Safe Haven, a phenomenal organization doing great things. I have the honor of sitting on your board and serving in any capacity as I can. This is our first go at a podcast, and so I'm excited to have conversations with you about who we are as an organization, what we do, what maybe makes us different, who we're right for, etc. So you want to talk a little bit about yourself just to start us off?
Love to talk about Her Safe Haven, and thank you for the partnership with your company and Doja. This has been such a blessing to us because you add a level of expertise and knowledge and commitment that is just amazing. So thank you for that.
Appreciate that.
We're
It's an
very
honor.
blessed.
It's an honor. So before we talk about Her Safe Haven, though, talk about you, please, so that everybody who happens to be listening knows who you are and honestly, the caliber of human that you are. That you have a job outside of this job, being executive director.
Yeah.
And so tell us about what you do and who you are and how you came to become involved with Her Safe Haven.
Yeah, so I'm not sure I'm qualified to talk about caliber of human, but let's just go with Linda Kricher, live here in Oakmont, Pennsylvania, and normal person, Christian, love Jesus, go to Amplify Church, and have for a long time and love that. A couple of years ago, maybe it's 5 or 6 years ago now, I got a call from somebody who said they were looking to start a home for women rescued from sex trafficking. And would anybody be interested? Actually, my husband, Lee, got the call, and would he be interested in being on a board? He's like, no, I don't think I would be, but maybe you would. And I'm like, well, I'll go talk to her. I don't know what this is about, but we'll go talk. So I met the person who had called, and she said, we're opening this home for women rescued from sex trafficking. And my exact quote was, well, we don't have that here. And she looked at me and she said, oh, let me tell you some stories about women I've personally met who've been caught in that and been rescued. And she did. She told me some stories that I was astounded. And I felt like as a Christian, I didn't know before that even it existed here. But now that I knew, I felt responsible to do something about it. So I agreed to be on the board. Joined the board, and that was the summer of 2021. We were able to purchase a home, which is what we were looking to do, to house women for a recovery period. It took us 2 years to get the home open, lots and lots of hurdles we had to face, but we did it. In September of 2023, September 12th to be exact, we opened the home and the first woman came to stay with us. Since that time, and we're taping this on March the 12th of 2026, we have 912 consecutive days of having at least one woman in our care. We've not had one day without at least one.
That's incredible. That's incredible. And, Her Safe Haven, we're careful to say that we don't rescue, but we restore rescued women. Can you talk through that process a little bit?
Yeah, we're not the ones who go out and snatch a woman out of a trafficker's hands or pick up somebody on the street. We get referrals from law enforcement, from medical providers, from women who just see a hotline number and call it. We've got lots of partners across the country who refer women to us. And right now we are licensed by the state of Pennsylvania's Drug and Alcohol Program. So the women that we are best equipped to help are ones who've been through trafficking or sexual exploitation and are overcoming some form of addiction. So we've got more of a clinical component to what we do. So we're not the ones rescuing, but when they come to us and they're meeting that criteria, we have an entire wraparound service that comes along with it. We have case management. And it's very individualized for the needs of each specific woman. And they all come with something different, all come in a different stage of recovery or, trauma or whatever. We're a low barrier shelter, so we're able to take women a lot of shelters will take women, but not until they're clean, not until they haven't used or whatever, they have a sober period. We will take women even if they're not. Now, we can't do a full-blown medical detox or anything that serious. Sometimes they'll go through that first and then come to us, and we'll hold a bed for them. But we're able to bring women in with case management, with medical services, with therapy, with group sessions, and they live in a home where it's like a family. It's other women who've been through the same thing, and they're able to, for the first time, find hope. We're a Christian organization, so faith is a part of it. We pray with them. We offer church or other Christian Bible studies and things like that. And for many of them, that's a big deal. We've had some get baptized. We've had, lots of good things happen as a result of that.
That's incredible. And I know we've talked about this before. Important to underline the faith element of it, but it's also not just that, right? It's
No,
not like
not
a
at all.
house of prayer
Not at all.
or something.
Not at all.
So, while that's an underline through the whole thing, can you just talk to us about what a rescued woman receives in order to be restored as they go through our programs?
Well, and again, that's very individual. Sometimes they've been through other programs and they've been through detox, they've been through recovery programs and did okay, and then they didn't. And, we've had some who've come through our program and they were okay and they graduated and then they weren't and they've come back. So we will individualize things. Sometimes the highest need is medical care. We've had some come in and they haven't seen a dentist for years, or they have gynecological needs that, we have a partnership with medical practices and they'll come to our home and, provide that medical care on a regular basis. Sometimes it's a therapy issue and they really need to process the trauma they've been through and the things that have happened. And so they get an array of things like that, all very individualized for their situation. Sometimes it's just finding people who have started to recover and they can start to believe that maybe there's hope for them because they didn't have hope. We've had women come in who've never had their own bed before, and we provide them a beautiful room to stay in, and they have their own bed. Sometimes they come with the clothing on their backs and they don't have a thing, and we're able to provide clothing and toiletries and whatever it is they need. But
Yeah. That's incredible. I feel like we've laid a pretty good groundwork for who Her Safe Haven is. I've got a lot more questions where that's pertaining, but let's just address what this whole thing is. Like, we're attempting to do a podcast or some sort of content. Who do you hope this to speak to? And what do you hope to accomplish in us having these conversations? It won't always be me. We'll bring on guests and people from our home and different professionals from different areas that touch Her Safe Haven and have an impact on it. What's your hope in all of these conversations as we kind of tee up what this podcast is?
If I had one overriding hope, it's that more people would understand that there's a need, that we can meet. There are things we can do to help these women find hope for the first time and find a life they never dreamed they could have. And if there are more people, I know there are a lot of people out there that are like I was, and I didn't know. I didn't even know this existed. I heard stories and saw movies, and of course it's in foreign countries. Didn't know it's right here in Oakmont, in Pittsburgh, in Pennsylvania, where we live. So if there are more people who become aware and start to recognize that there's a need, and they may be able to do something small to help, or maybe something big. I also want women who might come across this, and maybe they're in a situation and they don't even realize what's happening with them. And maybe they'll come across it and say, wait a minute, that sounds like me. That sounds like where I am. Sounds like something that I might need. If it could happen for one of these women that we talk about, maybe it could happen for me. So if there's somebody who's in need, or maybe we've had relatives of women reach out. We had a mother who called and said, my daughter is in a situation. Can you help her? Those kinds of things. There's hope. There is hope.
Yeah. So fantastic. So to piggyback on that, as we understand who her safe haven is and what we're trying to do with this show.
Mhm.
How does this happen to a woman?
A lot of different ways. Sometimes it's, and I have grandchildren myself, so I get afraid when I see them on their phones and their devices, and you never know who's reaching out. And we've heard so many stories of girls who they were talking to somebody who was their age and thought their picture was pretty on Facebook or the internet or Instagram or wherever they're looking, and started sending messages to them, and they were having a whole conversation thinking it was innocent, and then it wasn't so innocent. They were asked to send a picture and then maybe another picture, and maybe there's a compromising picture, and all of a sudden then it turns ugly and they're being blackmailed, and they become afraid, they're ashamed, they don't want to tell anybody, they're told not to tell. A lot of people get into it that way, and they're stuck. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to get out.
Hmm.
There was one very credible story of a woman going around one of our university campuses not long ago and inviting other girls to parties. And she'd invite them to parties, and what would happen at those parties was that somebody would put something in a drink, and then they're drugged, and something happens, and there's a picture afterwards, and all of a sudden they're stuck. Sometimes it's women who just have had a very, very high percentage of women who end up in these situations were abused as children.
Hmm.
One of our very first graduates, the trafficking started by a family member at the age of 5. Often it's in their teenage years. I could tell you many stories of women who, from a very young age, the people they should have trusted the most were the ones who did this evil to them. And so when you grow up like that, you have no sense of self-worth. The only thing you know that you're worth is whatever somebody can pay for you for a heinous act. So they don't know what else is out there. They don't know they can have a normal life. So there are lots of ways that people find themselves in a position, and unless they're able to see a way out, what do?
Right.
Sometimes they're stuck because they would try to escape, but how do they support themselves? Where do they go? Who's going to believe them?
Right. Right. And so it affects almost every area of their life.
Yeah.
Obviously, they've
Yeah.
got mentality issues. They've got identity issues. It causes financial issues that keeps them stuck. They're often physically addicted to drugs, which is why our recovery programs are so important
right.
to help them. It's really, there's multiple hooks, keeping them in. That's, that's terrible.
Yeah, and that's why we have to offer that whole array of services. We offer them a place to stay for free. We never charge a woman anything. We offer them food and clothing and just their, everything they need to live for free because they don't have the means to pay. And we offer them medical care, the therapy, everything they get is for free while they stay with us.
Yeah.
So, because they don't have the means to pay. Our hope eventually is that they'll be able to be recovered enough and build another life. And we've seen women who've gotten to that place.
That's right. Yeah. So this episode's heavy, as it has to be, right?
Yeah.
We cannot, how do we talk about this and it not be heavy, right?
I don't know.
Just is. It's probably the most horrific thing.
Yeah. But the good news is there's hope. The good news is women can recover. The good news is they can find a new life. They can find a life they never knew they could have, and they do.
Yes.
That's the good news.
That's so great. And then the next episode, I know we're going to get to hear a beautiful story of a woman who was rescued and recovered, and kind of be able to listen through some of the things she was saying and comment on it. So I'm excited about that. Yeah. How does a woman who is in this situation find themselves at her safe haven in a safe and secure way?
Well, sometimes it's by calling a hotline number. There's a hotline number they can call. There are hotline numbers. If you drive down highways here in Pennsylvania, you'll see hotline numbers posted on billboards. You'll go in a public restroom along the turnpike, for instance, and see a hotline number posted in the ladies' restroom always. If they can call a number like that, then they'll get to somebody who has the means to find them a place or figure out what's going on and try and help them. Sometimes they can go to law enforcement, or if they're in a medical situation, medical providers, emergency room nurses and doctors are trained to be able to help if somebody can get a message to them that there's a need. And there are groups out there trying to rescue.
Yeah.
That's just not what we do, but there are groups that do that.
Right. And so once they're identified and rescued, a woman or a family member will typically reach out to her safe haven, right?
Yeah, or the person who's done the rescuing. It's the other partners. Like if you call a hotline and it connects to, for instance, the Safe House Project, which is a nationally known group that we work with a lot. They have trained advocates who will talk to the woman, figure out what's going on, and who's the best place. What's the best place to contact to see if they can take them to help with a recovery. And so we'll get the call from them, not necessarily the woman herself. Sometimes it's the woman herself. She can go to our website, hersafehaven.org, and say, I'm looking to, I'm in a situation, I need help. And somebody will contact. But whoever contacts us, then we'll have that conversation and see if we're the ones to help or if we can refer somebody to a better place if we're not the particular best answer at that moment.
Incredible. All right. Well, thank you so much for this initial conversation. There's been, lower thirds and information on the screen about how to call in.
Yes.
If you happen to be a woman in this situation, there's buttons on our website you can go and click, and it's all safe and secure. I think it's safe to say too, if you want to get involved with the organization, how can people get involved?
hersafehaven.org, our website. You can volunteer. You can contact us. Lots of ways to do it. And just go to our website. You'll learn more about what we do and who we are, and there will be means to contact us through the website.
Incredible. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you. Thank you for tuning into Her Voice. It's been great to share some of our stories with you and share about what we do at Her Safe Haven. If you're interested in getting involved, please go to our website, hersafehaven.org. And you'll have lots of information there. If you're interested in donating or volunteering, you can sign up. If you're someone who's in a situation where you don't feel safe and you need help, you can go to our website as well, hersafehaven.org, and get help. Thank you.